Thought Bubble Audio.
Look, up in the sky!
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Welcome to Beer with Geeks with Tim and Frank.
Who are you?
I'm Batman.
I am Iron Man.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Hi, Christopher. I'm Nero.
My name is Inigo Montoya.
You're a wizard, Harry.
A couple of guys with a couple of beers and a whole lot of pop culture nostalgia.
Make it so, number one.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
Name the dog, Indiana.
Life finds a way.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Now sit back and crack open a cold one, because it's time for Beer with Geeks.
It comes in paints?
Shaken, not stirred.
Great Scott!
I was way off. I knew it started with an S, though.
Hi, and welcome to Beer with Geeks, where two geeks geek out with beer. I'm Tim, and with me, as always, is my friend who's blind, Frank. How are you today?
I don't see how that's relevant.
Haha, good puns. Good puns, but you're not really blind, Frank. You just pretend and trick all your friends.
Yeah, it's a great party trick.
Like a terrible person. Yeah.
Like a terrible person, yes.
Like
for
a
instance.
terrible person.
A little bit like that, yeah.
Yeah, man, exactly. All right, man, we're drinking some beer. I'm sure you're drinking some beer, yeah?
I am drinking some beer.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What are you drinking?
Well, as you can see, it is a Harpoon Dunkin coffee porter.
Ah, they're so good, right?
Isn't it so good?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. Again, I feel like Harpoon is pretty regional, but is expanding its reach outside of New England. But in case you're not familiar, Harpoon is a big Boston brewery, Boston and Vermont, actually. And they have partnered with Dunkin' Donuts, or actually just Dunkin' now, to make this Dunkin' coffee porter. And it is so good. It is a like classic porter, and Harpoon already makes a really good porter, and they made a coffee porter with Dunkin' coffee, and it's delicious, and I love it.
Legitimately might be the best coffee porter I've ever had.
Ooh, nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, because I don't love coffee porters. Like, either I can't taste the coffee enough, or it doesn't taste like coffee at all. You know, like I can't figure it out. But this one is like the perfect blend of the coffee and the beer.
I would recommend to you, if you like a coffee porter, a good coffee. Well, this is actually a stout, but Founders Brewing has a really good breakfast stout.
Okay,
it's so good. It's got like two different kinds of coffee, a little bit of chocolate, and oatmeal in it.
Oh, okay.
It's amazing. That's why it's called breakfast stout. It's incredible, and it's one of those beers that you will really want to like. It's frothy and it's heavy, but like if you drink it in the morning, like at brunch or something, you will feel full. Like it's just like when you go to somewhere in Ireland and they have like Guinness on tap, like for breakfast. You could drink this for breakfast. It is a hearty beer, but so good.
Wow, so I am on board for that.
Recommend the Founders breakfast stout if you like coffee beers. But what are you drinking tonight?
I am drinking the very opposite of a thing that you just described. I am drinking Omission Brewing Company's Ultimate Light Golden Ale.
Nice. I do love that beer. I really do.
Yeah, so this is not the original recipe, Omission.
Right.
This is their Ultimate Light Golden Ale. So it's like their light beer version of their ultra light beer. But I have to be gluten-free for a little while, Frank. So Omission is right up my alley.
Well, there you go. Yeah, it's great. To be fair, I haven't actually, now that you spell it out, I haven't had the light one, the light golden ale, but I've had their other beers, a few of them. I've bought a few 4-packs of them, and they're really, really good for gluten-free beer. You would have no idea it's gluten-free. You would have no idea.
None, really. I really... It's great. I really like it. I mean, it's definitely light. I mean, when you emphasize the light of the light beer, but it has a better taste than most light beers that I've come across. It still tastes like beer. You know, it's not that point where like this is just water or this tastes like foul or stale, or you know, like sometimes that happens with some beers we won't name. But Omission is really good, and I'm very impressed. And I was actually in the liquor store this evening before coming home, because I knew this is what I wanted to drink, and I was not having a panic attack, but I was like, I couldn't find it, and I was like, no, why can't I find it?
Right.
This is terrible. Oh, there it is. Great. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So drink it cold, drink it warm. It's good either way. So I'm pumped with my Omission.
Real good. Real
man.
good.
Yeah. You know what else I'm pumped about, Frank? The fact that we can talk about Daredevil Season 3 together.
At long last.
At the long lasting. Yes, indeed. Because, Frank, correct me if I'm wrong, you liked Season 1.
Yes.
You didn't care for Season 2.
Correct.
But you loved Season 3.
Loved it so much, Tim. I was such a big fan of this season.
Tell me why you were such a fan of this season, because I like all three. 1 is magnificent. It's a masterwork. 2, I think, is good. I'm one of those people. I also like Iron Man 2. You can get over it. And then 3, I think, was majestic. Majestical, if I was to quote, a Taika Waititi film.
Sure.
It's an excellent piece of production. Tell me why you liked it so much.
For me, Season 1 was very good. Season 2 was not my cup of tea. And Season 3 was like masterpiece, beautiful, wonderful work of art. Couple reasons. I really loved seeing like what felt like Fisk finally being the Kingpin. Like being the Kingpin.
Yeah, man. Spoilers from this point onward.
Yes.
They call him the Kingpin. That's
his
code name.
They actually called him the Kingpin. As we talked about on a previous episode, he was wearing the white suit. But like the masterful machinations, that it took for him to, he was in prison, but was still, not only was he still calling the shots, but he was like living large and calling the shots. We've seen stories before where someone is like in prison and like from the inside of the jail, they're still, heading up their mob family or whatever. But this was a whole different thing where he was like living in his penthouse apartment, even though he was quote unquote in prison.
Yep.
And he was calling all the shots like a badass, like Wilson Fisk. Like it was full on Kingpin, which I loved. That was really, really cool.
It's true. And I felt like he was the Kingpin even in Season 1. Like we walked away from that season and I was like, man, the Kingpin was great. Fisk was the best. But then by the time you get here, you're like, oh my God, what was Season 1?
That was training wheels compared to this.
I know. It's just I think the payoff of this season from start to finish, that's what made Season 1 very good, right? Like everything had a payoff. But this season kind of took that to the next degree where they were able to wrap back so many things that were of incredible importance to the characters. They made them important to then the audience, and I really appreciated the forethought that went into everything. Even something as simple as, say, like at the end of The Defenders, say, Matt gets hurt, and so his costume is pretty much in ruins, right? So he has to go back to the black costume, his original. But also, he has no interest in being that version of Daredevil anymore, because that version's maybe slightly more of a hero, and he's not interested in being a hero. He wants revenge. It's it's a little bit different. It's a little bit of a different turn, and so now he's in all black in this depressive state. He's like down in this hole, the blackness of his own soul. Fisk, meanwhile, is all white suits, right? We get a look at his closet, and it's all white. He is in his own mind the shining knight that has come to save people and everyone, even though he knows he's not like doing good things, like you know what I mean. He's well aware of his own machinations and what they do to people and everything like that. He's not fooling himself, but by dressing in this whiteness, that it's like, I've cleansed myself of what I was before, and I'm becoming the Kingpin, baby.
Yep.
But I've still got this black shirt on to show that I'm still dead inside.
Yeah, that's right. to his core. At his core, he's dead.
At his core, exactly. Underneath all the sheen, he's still dead inside. But then you have Dex, who is dressing up in the Daredevil suit because he is not only tricked by the man in white, the devil himself, basically, in the Kingpin, but then he is to be the devil, right? You know, this devil to others, this massacrer of New York City. And then, you know, and so not only is he like framing Daredevil by wearing this suit, but he's also very symbolically, the devil has come.
Yes.
And and it, like, all of that is just, it's so well laid out from start to finish, along with referencing a lot of comic book material, whether you watch or read it or not. So, like, Bullseye's first appearance really is as Daredevil, being hired by Wilson Fisk to frame Daredevil.
Okay.
And so it's like straight out of comicdom, you know, like, boom, here he is. It's so cool. It was just so well plotted from start to finish.
That's really cool to know. I didn't really realize that, so I love knowing that.
Well, I'm here for you that way, Frank. I'm here for you.
Thank you.
What I also really love, speaking of, while staying with the Fisk realm of things, I guess in Dex, I'll do that bit first. Dex's origin episode was great.
Amazing.
Not only was it a flesh out, well constructed origin that made me just want to know more and more and more. Even though it was telling me things, I was like, but give me more information. I just want to know everything. Really, really well done. I love the way it was filmed, with Wilson being there the whole time. You could see like the wheels turning, almost like, how am I going to get this guy on my side? What am I going to do? It's basically the Emperor and Anakin, but done way better.
Yeah. Really, really masterfully done.
Oh, yeah. It would almost be like, so you know that scene in Revenge of the Sith where Anakin is talking to Yoda and they're meditating and he was like, you know, they're in pain and I'm having, you know, these dreams and all of this stuff. It would be like knowing that the Emperor had a video camera, like, and watched that information, right? And then like used it against it. It was like missing that component. And, like, and that's what season 3 of Daredevil was able to give us, which was so cool. But then I really loved Wilson really letting in Victoria? No, what's her name?
Vanessa
into his world.
Yes.
You know, and like
that was surprising and great.
It was surprisingly great. But like when they're watching everybody in his little secret den kind of thing that he has with all his video cameras, and she's like, wouldn't it be better if you tied up the loose ends?
Yeah.
Isn't that what they are? And I'm like, oh, you're so evil. Like, I knew it about you, but you just confirmed it. And man, it's just so good. Like, I want to watch it again. So good.
So good. Yeah. That was unexpected that she would be that way. And I loved it. It was surprising, and I, you know, this season was great in ways that I can't fully explain. Like, it's not necessarily consistent for me to enjoy something like this because I'm not really an anti-hero guy, and I'm not really necessarily into these types of stories, and that's why Daredevil as a character doesn't always appeal to me, or I'm sort of hit or miss with him. Doesn't always get the bullseye, but I really enjoyed this, and talking about that Dex episode in particular. I didn't care for Punisher. I never really have cared for the character of Punisher, and I have no particular attachment to Bullseye. You know, my only real exposure to this character before now is Colin Farrell.
Well, no wonder you don't care for him,
right?
Yeah,
but I put that aside, and I really loved that origin story for Dex. Wow. Wow, was that a great episode. And I think I told you this. I had forgotten that this was Bullseye.
Oh yeah, you did tell me that. That's right.
So the first couple episodes, they were like, all right, here's Agent Poindexter and Dex and Dex and Dex. I was like, okay, here's this Dex guy, and they're showing his backstory, and I was like, oh, okay, he had a troubled past, and then he threw that baseball at his coach.
Yeah.
And that's when it clicked. I was like, "Oh, right, he's Bullseye." I forgot. Like I knew in the back of my mind. I just had forgotten about it. And I want to actually give a shout out also to a friend of mine, Michal, wrote this really great piece for Hypable about Bullseye throughout this season, and she kind of breaks down Daredevil season 3, breaking down the brilliance of Bullseye is what the piece is called. I'd recommend everyone read it. I'll put a link in the show notes. It's a really great piece of writing, and she's a great writer, and she's been a friend for years. She's been reviewing TV and has amazing insights, and I really, really agree with what she has to say about how this really great character piece on Bullseye and how showing the motivations of a villain in this way was so powerful, and so what a great piece of art they created out of this, and in my opinion, it made for the best season of this show ever.
Yep. I mean, we've seen the character 4 times, right? 3 seasons of Daredevil and 1 of the Defenders, and this is, I think, definitely his best outing.
Yep,
start to finish, because Matt can sometimes get to be a frustrating character. Because you're like, oh my God, just trust people. Just like calm down.
Right.
Like you fool. But this season did a really nice job, I think, at building him back up again.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Sometimes it's better to watch a character build themselves up than break themselves down. And we kind of, season 1, you watched Matt build himself up. To season 2 and season 2 and Defenders, you kind of watched him kind of crumble a little bit, and he's at the lowest of his low here, and then build himself back.
Right,
was pretty awesome. A lot of his relationship with Sister Maggie / mom,
mm-hmm.
And then a deeper relationship with Father Lantom. I think, to me, really sold this season from that aspect, because it wasn't just it wasn't just the Foggy and Karen side of things being like, oh Matt, we don't understand you, we're gonna trust you and be on your side, but we don't understand you. But then you have like maybe wisdom and experience coming at him from the other side too, which was a new dynamic to see Matt grow as a person. I really enjoyed that.
I did, that was a bit of a slow start for me, I'll be honest. That whole thing at the beginning of the season where he was like, oh, Matt Murdock's dead, that I don't have a lot of patience for. I feel like I've seen that story a lot. So at first I was sort of like, not one of these. But I'd say about 2-3 episodes in, when I kind of saw what it was all for and where we were going with it, I was good with it at that point.
That makes sense. I mean, most of this, a good chunk of this season is based on Frank Miller's Born Again.
That I had heard. Yep.
So maybe sometimes like you just like I just take things for granted sometimes. Like, oh yeah, it's born. It's Born Again. So we're going to get to this point eventually, or we're going to get to this point or this point or this point. So I'm not really sure. What do you think about everybody kind of wrapping up at the end? Like we're all in like a hey, friends again, high fives all around. Like how do you feel about that ending? Do you feel that was natural for them to just like all like come back together again?
Not really natural. It was a little contrived, and yet I'm still okay with it. I'm like, yeah, that's all right. Like they did it in kind of a clumsy way, but going into season 4, I'll be glad to have the gang back together again. So I wish they had done it in a more artful way, but I'll kind of put it behind me, and when we get to season 4, I'll forget all about it.
Yep, that's exactly how I felt too. Like I was glad to see them all like laughing and chatting, and we're gonna like be these friends again and whatever else. And then, but then at the same time, I was like, but like Karen getting fired, like she could have got her job back because she was right, and
right.
Foggy is just being Foggy. But he could have still had his high-paying job and like all this stuff. But it's almost like those characters needed to go off and do something different to realize they all needed one another.
Yeah,
like the band getting back together again. We all tried solo albums and it wasn't as fun. So let's and now we're back.
We all tried solo albums. Oh my god, that's such a great that thought of like, what would Foggy Nelson's like solo album be like?
Acoustic alternative.
The alternative DA.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I enjoyed actually that little alternative DA storyline. I really enjoyed that because it showed Foggy to be like a really passionate about a cause, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't just like, I'm in it for the money or whatever, or I'm here to complain about Matt Murdock or whatever. You know, like he had a real drive this season. So his growth as a character is pretty great. And Karen's episode was
holy crap,
was awesome. I didn't realize I cared that much about Karen until that episode, and I was like, wow, why do I really care? Like I care about this character. About this character.
Hey, quick Karen about Karen. I had a similar experience where I found myself in this season like feeling like they were giving her more to work with. And then when that episode came, like that just obviously everything changed. And from that moment on, I was really, really invested in her. And yeah, I was more invested in Foggy too, because for both of them, really, they had their own interests. They had their own stories, in this season. They weren't just there as props for Matt. They weren't just there as supporting characters for Matt. They were their own characters. And
exactly.
I really, really liked where they went with both of them. And yeah, Foggy, I think, maybe had the most growth to do, because even in season 2 we saw reporter Karen.
That's true.
She had something of her own life where Foggy kind of didn't. But now he's got, he's a successful lawyer. He ran for DA. He stood up for what he believed in and really made a name for himself and really found himself in a lot of ways. He's got the girlfriend. Like he's got all of that. He's got his own life. And he's a fully fleshed out character now where he wasn't really before.
Yep, I completely agree with you. Speaking of fleshed out characters, what did you think of Agent Ray Nadeem?
I really liked Nadeem.
Me too. That first episode, I was like, meh. And then after that, I was like, wow, this guy is great.
Yeah. He was a flawed but good man.
Exactly.
He was a good guy at his core, but had major flaws, and he allowed some terrible things to happen because because he thought he was protecting his family, because he thought he was backed up against the corner and had no choice. Atrocities happened on his watch, and he could have and should have said something, but they constructed the story in such a way that it's like you can almost understand how he felt powerless, how he felt helpless, how he was backed in this corner and felt like there was nothing else he could do, and he let awful things happen because he felt like there was no choice.
Yeah. Yep, I completely agree. And I was on his side from start to finish, even like decisions that he made where sometimes you'd almost want to be like, oh no, but then I was like, nope, that's the right call. You're doing the right thing. Like even like trusting or not trusting people I was just, man.
For the most part. I mean, when he knew they were going to go shoot up the church, that was a different thing.
Sure, but you're not, but like.
But he felt like he had no choice.
But I think he was such a relatable person, I think, where, where everybody
that's a good
else.
way of putting that. Yeah.
Everybody else, even Foggy and Karen in some ways, aren't really relatable because they've been through stuff that you've never been through. Mm-hmm. But he is like going through it for the first time. Like, how would you actually react?
That's
probably
you nailed it.
Close to it. How would you react?
That's what it is. He's like a proxy for the audience where it's like, what if you were you who, presumably everyone thinks they're a pretty good person. You who consider yourself a good person, what if you got pulled into this mess? How would you handle it?
Yep, and that's exactly how he was written. It was really, really well thought out. What do you think of the fights and all of that? The actual action-oriented stuff.
I don't have much to say on that. I'm not much of a fight choreography guy. I feel like I'm blind to that. You always have opinions on, this is really good fight choreography, or this was bad. I liked that it wasn't all ninjas this time, because that stuff is just sort of like, I can't watch that for too long. Not big like kung fu movie guy. I'm not a big like action like fighting movie martial arts. Mm-hmm. It's just not an art that I really know how to appreciate. I don't know how to put that.
It's a good way. It's a good way of putting it. I don't know how to appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't mean that I think it's bad. It's just that I don't have taste for what's good and what's not. So I don't have much to say on that. I liked that it the Dex on Daredevil stuff was really cool, because that was sort of like seeing, Bullseye is has an interesting fighting style, so that was cool for me. But outside of that, I don't really have much to say on that. But what did you think?
Well, to talk about the Daredevil, the main two, the big two fights, those first two fights, the one in the Daily Bugle stand-in, the Daily Bulletin, and then the fight in the church. So the fight in the church you saw in Daredevil the movie, right? That's the famous fight between the two of them in comics, and then the fight in the office. I loved the choreography for Dex because anything was a weapon, right? And it wasn't specialized, right? Like we saw his little ninja throwing stars in the safe and all that kind of stuff. Like if you opened it up, like the Daredevil, the Bullseye signature stuff, but it was like staplers and pencils. And like if you did that with somebody, like even if you weren't fighting them, what a great way to stop somebody, because you're like, stop, stop it. You know what I mean? And it's like almost like annoying. You're like, stop it, stop throwing things. But he's also right. But he's all like throwing like scissors and this and this and this, and he's aiming for things that could do some real damage. Like throwing a stapler at your jugular is gonna hurt.
Stop
right?
stapling yourself.
Stop stapling yourself. Yeah. So I loved, Matt learning from his first experience to be like, I have to fight him close, which actually works to Matt's strength as a like learned boxer, right? Like he should be staying close to him. And so I loved that progression where it's like, it's not like I got to fight him again, but there was a real thought to how I need to fight him again. I really enjoyed that. And then the prison kind of breakout fight thing was just extraordinarily well thought out.
Oh boy, yeah.
From start to finish, just like where the camera moved and where people went and how it followed the action was just really, really remarkable. They really outdo themselves every season. Thinking that it basically, this type of fighting basically started with somebody, like, oh, we should all fight in the hallway and we'll move back between different rooms and then we'll just keep watching it happen like that. And now they're like, now we have to make it bigger. But they do such a good job at making it bigger. And you can't. Daredevil is a show that you don't want to be looking at your phone while watching it.
Yes, that's very true. It is a single focus unitasker show. You can't be looking at multiple screens. It's a single screen show.
Yep, it's a single, which is a really high compliment for shows these days, because you can almost, I watch a lot of shows that I could definitely be doing some of the things at the same time and get the gist, and I'm fine.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, this is like, they talk about peak TV, they talk about prestige dramas. This is up there with any other, HBO or Netflix or any other like high prestige, high quality drama. This is definitely on par.
Especially this season of Daredevil, season 3, to me, like, I had the same feeling watching each episode as I did watching an episode of Game of Thrones. Don't talk to me. Don't disturb me. Nothing is in my line of sight except what I'm watching right now, because it is of the utmost importance, because every single second, every frame is deliberate. And not that other shows really aren't deliberate in their framing. It's not to diss on other shows, but it's every single component from start to finish, nothing is out of place. It is exactly where it's supposed to be to propel the characters and the plot forward. There's two types of storytelling, right? There's character driven and there's plot driven. But Daredevil season 3 did a great job at blending both of those types of storytelling together to propel us to a new level and of enjoyment. And
yeah, totally agree.
Yeah,
totally agree.
Well, Frank, I think that was just a great place to end. Never mind, anything else. What do you think about that?
I think so. I think that's a good ending place.
Fantastic.
Great season.
Great. So you can find us on the internet at beerwithgeeks.com and thoughtbubbleaudio.com to check out all of our other Thought Bubble Audio shows. You can head over to patreon.com/thoughtbubbleaudio to support us.
And you know what? Over on Patreon, our Patreon supporters got an exclusive conversation between you and me about Daredevil season 3. That's where we talked about stuff that we're not even talking about here.
That's true. I actually don't remember what we talked about in that conversation, so it was probably very different because
it was actually pretty different. Yeah,
you weren't
it was pretty
done
different.
yet. I think when we had that conversation,
I think I wasn't quite done yet. Yeah. That was one of our cut for time that we do over on Patreon. So patreon.com/thoughtbubbleaudio. You can get that. You can get first early episodes of Beer with Geeks before they're released. If you like this show, if this is the only Thought Bubble Audio show you listen to, $1 a month is the same as $0.25 per episode. So 25 cents, if that feels like a fair, contribution for a little bit of entertainment every week, shoot that over to us at patreon.com/thoughtbubbleaudio. But where else can they find us?
They can also find us on iTunes to leave us a nice handy dandy review, and Spotify, and Google Play, and all other places podcasts can be found. You, and then of course, can email us at beerwithgeeks.com. You can find us on Twitter at beerwithgeeks and the Facebook at beerwithgeeks. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Frank, before we wrap up completely, I want to say Dex's obsession with that girl and the way all that played out.
Yeah.
So masterfully creepy. It was amazing.
That's kind of how I feel about you.
Masterfully creepy. Love it. Yeah, at least I'm the master at something.
I actually was going to say I've been stalking you that way, but we'll go with masterfully creepy. Yeah, we'll go with
that. Sure. That was a backwards compliment. I understand now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then, until next time, cheers.